Rejected and humiliated at a car dealership, an ordinary woman returns the next day with a billionaire's secret and a Rolls-Royce that changes everything. In a small town in the heart of America, where everyone knew each other by name and life moved at a slower pace, lived Sarah Thompson. She was an ordinary woman with extraordinary kindness, a devoted wife, a loving mother, and someone who always put others before herself. Sarah had spent years building her family's modest life alongside her husband, Michael, whom she adored deeply. They weren't rich, but they were happy, or so it seemed on the surface. One sunny afternoon, Sarah decided to visit a local car dealership. It wasn't for herself, rather, it was to surprise Michael for their upcoming anniversary. He had been talking about upgrading their old Sagan for months, something more reliable that could handle long road trips. With some savings tucked away after years of careful budgeting, Sarah felt confident enough to step into the dealership and explore options within their means. The sun hung high in the sky, casting golden rays over the small town where Sarah Thompson lived her simple yet fulfilling life. With a heart full of hope and determination, she stepped out of her modest sedan and approached the entrance of the local car dealership. The lot was bustling with activity. Salespeople chatting enthusiastically with potential buyers, families inspecting shiny new cars, and mechanics working diligently on vehicles in the background. It felt like stepping into another world, one filled with gleaming chrome finishes and leather interiors that smelled faintly of polish and luxury. Sarah had spent weeks saving for this day. She wanted to surprise Michael, her husband of 10 years, for their upcoming anniversary. He had often mentioned how much he longed for a reliable car, one that could handle family road trips without breaking down halfway through or requiring endless repairs. Though they weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, Sarah had managed to squirrel away enough money from grocery budgets and canceled dinners out to make this dream possible. As she entered the showroom, her eyes scanned the rows of vehicles, each more impressive than the last. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine the look on Michael's face when he saw what she'd chosen for him. A gift born not just of love, but also of sacrifice. But almost immediately, Sarah sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The warmth she had expected to find in such a place evaporated as soon as a salesperson approached her. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his name tag read Greg. His polished smile seemed forced, almost mechanical, as if it were part of a rehearsed routine rather than genuine hospitality. Greg glanced at Sarah's attire, a sweater, jeans, and sneakers, and his demeanor changed instantly. Instead of offering a friendly greeting, his lips curled into a subtle sneer, and his gaze turned dismissive. Without so much as asking her name or why she was there, he cut straight to the chase. "We don't have anything here for people like you," Greg said curtly, his tone dripping with condescension. The words hit Sarah like a slap across the face. "People like me," she thought, her cheeks flushing red. What did he mean by that? Did he assume she couldn't afford even the cheapest vehicle on the lot, simply because she wasn't dressed in designer clothes or carrying an expensive handbag? Before she could respond, Greg continued, raising his voice slightly to ensure nearby customers heard him too. "If you can't afford what we sell here, maybe you should go somewhere else." The comment echoed through the showroom, drawing curious stares from other patrons. Some looked sympathetic, while others appeared amused by the spectacle unfolding before them. Sarah felt her heart sink as embarrassment washed over her. She had come here with good intentions, ready to explore options within her budget, only to be treated like an unwelcome intruder. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse tighter, her confidence crumbling under the weight of Greg's disdainful remarks. Desperate to salvage the situation, Sarah tried to explain herself. "I'm actually looking to buy something today," she said softly, her voice barely audible above the hum of conversation around them. "I've saved up, and I'd like to see what you have available." But Greg didn't let her finish. Interrupting her once again, he crossed his arms and leaned back slightly, his body language exuding arrogance. "Look, lady," he snapped, his patience visibly thinning. "We cater to serious buyers. If you're just wasting my time, I've got better things to do." Each word felt like a dagger piercing deeper into Sarah's self-esteem. How dare he judge her so harshly based solely on her appearance? Didn't he realize that everyone deserved respect, regardless of how they looked or what they wore? Anger began bubbling beneath the surface of her shame, but she swallowed it down, unwilling to stoop to his level. Instead, she nodded quietly, forcing a weak smile despite the turmoil inside her. "Thank you for your time," she murmured, turning away before he could say anything else. As Sarah walked back to her car, tears welled up in her eyes. The bright afternoon sunlight now seemed mocking, highlighting her humiliation instead of lifting her spirits. She slid behind the wheel of her aging sedan, gripping the steering wheel tightly as emotions overwhelmed her. How could someone be so cruel? Hadn't she earned the right to be treated fairly after working hard all these years? The question swirled in her mind, leaving her feeling defeated and small. On the drive home, Sarah replayed the encounter over and over again. Every dismissive glance, every cutting remark, replayed in vivid detail. By the time she pulled into her driveway, her resolve had hardened. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about standing up for herself and proving that no one should be judged based on superficial criteria. Little did she know, this incident would set off a chain reaction that would change not only her life, but also the lives of those who underestimated her. When Sarah finally walked through the front door of her home, she found Michael waiting for her in the kitchen. Sensing her distress immediately, he set aside the newspaper he'd been reading and gave her his full attention. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked gently, his brow furrowing with concern. At first, Sarah hesitated, unsure whether to share the painful details of her visit to the dealership. But seeing the love and understanding in Michael's eyes, she decided to open up. "I went to the dealership today," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I wanted to surprise you for our anniversary," but her sentence trailed off as tears threatened to spill over again. Taking a deep breath, she recounted the entire ordeal: the dismissive attitude, the cutting remarks, the public humiliation. To her surprise, Michael listened intently, his expression growing darker with each passing moment. When she finished speaking, he remained silent for a few seconds, processing everything she'd told him. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. Not the kind of smile that mocked or belittled, but one filled with quiet amusement and pride. "Sarah," he said, his voice calm but firm, "there's something I need to tell you." And with those words, he revealed a secret he kept hidden for years, a truth that would turn their lives upside down and give Sarah the power to confront the injustice she'd faced head-on. What happened next would leave the arrogant salesperson and the entire dealership speechless. The kitchen was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Sarah sat at the table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Her mind was still reeling from the events of the day, the humiliation, the judgment, the way she had been dismissed as though she were invisible. She felt exposed and vulnerable, emotions she rarely allowed herself to feel. Michael, seated across from her, watched her intently. His expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of determination mixed with what looked like suppressed excitement. "Sarah," he began again, leaning forward slightly, "there's something I need to tell you." His tone was gentle yet deliberate, as if he were choosing his words carefully. Sarah looked up at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. What could he possibly say to make sense of what had happened? Michael took a deep breath before continuing. "You know how much I love our life together, right?" he asked, his voice steady. Sarah nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "I've always wanted us to live simply, to focus on what really matters: family, love, and being there for each other. That's why I never told you about my work." Sarah tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "Your work?" she echoed. "What do you mean?" Michael smiled faintly, almost bashfully. "Remember when I started that tech company years ago? The one I told you wouldn't amount to much?" Sarah nodded again, recalling the late nights Michael spent working on his laptop, the endless phone calls, and the occasional trips out of town. At the time, she had assumed it was just another small business venture, something to supplement their modest income. But now, seeing the look in Michael's eyes, she realized there was far more to the story than she'd ever imagined. "That company." Michael paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "It grew, faster than I ever expected. And over the years, it became, well, let's just say it made me very successful." Sarah stared at him, her mouth slightly agape. "Successful? Like, how successful? Michael chuckled softly, running a hand through his hair. Let's put it this way. I'm not exactly the average guy next door anymore. I've built a fortune, Sarah, a real one. Enough to buy every car in that dealership 10 times over. For a moment, Sarah couldn't process what she was hearing. Her husband, the man who mowed the lawn in old jeans, who fixed leaky faucets himself, who insisted they eat leftovers instead of ordering takeout, was a billionaire? It sounded absurd, like something out of a movie. Yet, looking into Michael's earnest face, she knew he wasn't joking. He was telling the truth. But, why didn't you tell me? She asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Why keep it a secret all these years? Michael reached across the table and took her hands in his. Because I didn't want money to change us, he explained. When we got married, we promised to build a life based on love and trust, not wealth or status. I was afraid that if you knew how much money I had, it might create distance between us. You've always valued simplicity, and I didn't want to lose that connection we share. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude and awe. Michael had sacrificed so much to preserve the life they had together, even hiding a monumental part of himself to protect their bond. It was overwhelming, but also deeply moving. And now? Sarah prompted, her voice trembling. Why are you telling me now? Michael's expression turned serious. Because no one gets to treat my wife the way you were treated today, he said firmly, his jaw tightening. That salesperson judged you without knowing anything about you. He reduced you to your appearance, assuming you weren't worthy of respect because of how you dressed. But I know who you are, Sarah. You're strong, kind, and incredibly deserving of dignity. And tomorrow, I want to remind him, and everyone else at that dealership, exactly what they missed. Sarah blinked, trying to absorb everything Michael was saying. Part of her wanted to protest, to insist that revenge wasn't necessary. But another part of her, a part she hadn't acknowledged until now, felt a spark of empowerment. For too long, she had let others define her worth. Today, she would take back control. So, what's the plan? She asked, her voice steadier now. Michael grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. Tomorrow morning, I'll send a driver to pick you up. Wear something nice. We're going to show them exactly who they underestimated. The following morning, Sarah stood in front of her closet, staring at the few dresses she owned. Most were practical outfits meant for church or family gatherings, nothing extravagant. Then, tucked away in the corner, she spotted it. A stunning designer gown Michael had surprised her with on their 5th wedding anniversary. She had worn it only once, saving it for special occasions that never seemed to come. Today, however, felt different. This wasn't just about dressing up. It was about stepping into a new version of herself, one unafraid to demand the respect she deserved. As she slipped into the gown and paired it with elegant heels, Sarah caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked confident, poised, and radiant. Gone was the uncertainty that had plagued her the day before. In its place was a quiet strength she hadn't known she possessed. When the chauffeur arrived in a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom, Sarah stepped outside, her head held high. The sight of the luxurious vehicle drew immediate attention from neighbors peeking out of their windows. As the car glided toward the dealership, Sarah rehearsed what she would say. She didn't want to gloat or rub salt in anyone's wounds. Instead, she aimed to deliver a message, one of dignity, resilience, and the importance of treating others with kindness, regardless of appearances. By the time the Rolls-Royce pulled up to the dealership, Sarah felt ready. Ready to confront the past, reclaim her pride, and prove that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in character and integrity. Little did she know, her arrival would leave an indelible mark on everyone present, not just the arrogant salesperson who had dismissed her, but the entire community as well. The sun rose over the small town, casting a soft golden glow across the streets. It was another ordinary morning at the car dealership, a bustling hub of activity where salespeople greeted customers with practiced smiles and promises of finding the perfect vehicle for your needs. Inside the showroom, Greg, the same salesperson who had humiliated Sarah the previous day, was already on his feet. He adjusted his tie in the mirror, mentally preparing himself for another day of closing deals and chasing commissions. everything seemed routine, until the sound of an engine broke the monotony. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided smoothly into view, its polished exterior reflecting the sunlight like liquid glass. The car moved with an air of quiet authority, commanding attention without uttering a single word. As it pulled up to the entrance of the dealership, heads turned in unison. Customers paused mid-conversation, mechanics stopped tinkering under hoods, and even the receptionist abandoned her desk to catch a glimpse of the spectacle unfolding outside. Greg's initial reaction was one of awe mixed with greed. A Rolls-Royce? Here? His mind raced with possibilities. Whoever owned this car was clearly wealthy beyond measure, an ideal customer capable of making a sale that could secure his bonus for months. Without hesitation, he straightened his posture, smoothed out his suit jacket, and strode toward the entrance, ready to charm whoever stepped out of the vehicle. The driver's door opened first, revealing a uniformed chauffeur who stepped out with precision and professionalism. Then came the passenger door. Out emerged Sarah Thompson, not the casually dressed woman from yesterday, but a vision of elegance and poise. Dressed in a stunning designer gown that accentuated her figure, paired with heels that clicked confidently against the pavement, she exuded confidence and grace. Her hair was styled impeccably, and her makeup enhanced her natural beauty. Every detail about her screamed sophistication and wealth. Behind her followed Michael, every inch the billionaire entrepreneur. His tailored suit fit him perfectly, and his demeanor radiated power and control. Together, they formed a picture-perfect couple, one that belonged in glossy magazine spreads or red carpet events, rather than a modest car dealership in a small American town. Greg's jaw nearly hit the floor as realization dawned. This was the same woman he had dismissed so cruelly just 24 hours earlier. Panic surged through him as memories of his condescending remarks flooded back. "We don't have anything here for people like you." Those words now felt like daggers piercing his own ego. He forced a smile onto his face, though it wavered under the weight of his anxiety. "Welcome," Greg exclaimed, bowing slightly in what he hoped was a gesture of deference. "How may I assist you today?" His voice carried an exaggerated warmth, each syllable dripping with false sincerity. Sarah didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a deliberate step forward, her gaze locking onto Greg's. There was no anger in her expression, only calm resolve. She let the silence stretch for a moment longer than necessary, allowing the tension to build before finally speaking. "Oh, I'm just here to browse," she said coolly, her tone laced with irony. "Unless you still think I can't afford anything here." Greg froze, his smile faltering. The blood drained from his face as the pieces clicked together. This wasn't just any wealthy client, it was her. The woman he had mocked, belittled, and sent away empty-handed. And now, she had returned, not only with money, but also with undeniable style and presence. Stammering, Greg attempted to recover. Ma'am. I must apologize if there was any misunderstanding yesterday. Please allow me to make it right. Our finest selections are at your disposal." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Save it," she replied firmly, cutting him off mid-sentence. Her voice carried a quiet authority that silenced the entire room. "You judged me yesterday based on how I looked. Today, I'm here to remind you that respect costs nothing, and ignorance is far more expensive than any car you sell." Her words hung in the air, reverberating through the showroom like a thunderclap. The other salespeople exchanged awkward glances, some looking guilty while others appeared impressed by Sarah's composure. Customers murmured quietly among themselves, clearly intrigued by the unfolding drama. Even the dealership owner emerged from his office, drawn by the commotion. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the owner approached Sarah and Michael with a mixture of concern and desperation. "Ma'am, sir, please accept my sincerest apologies," he said, extending a hand toward them. "We strive to provide exceptional service to all our clients, and it seems we fell short yesterday. How can we rectify this?" Michael stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. "First, I want to ensure that my wife receives the apology she deserves," he stated evenly. "And second, I expect changes to be made within your dealership to prevent this kind of behavior from happening again." The owner nodded vigorously, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Of course, absolutely. We will implement new training programs focused on customer service and inclusivity. You have my word. Satisfied, but not entirely convinced, Sarah decided to give them the benefit of the doubt, for now. With Michael by her side, she allowed the owner to guide them through the showroom, showcasing their most luxurious models. While they listened politely, neither Sarah nor Michael showed any real interest in purchasing anything. Their purpose wasn't to buy a car, it was to deliver a lesson in humility and humanity. As they prepared to leave, Sarah paused near the entrance and turned to address the staff gathered around them. "Remember this moment," she said, her voice steady and clear. "True wealth isn't measured by the price tag of the car someone drives or the clothes they wear. It's measured by how you treat others, with kindness, respect, and dignity. Don't wait until someone arrives in a Rolls-Royce to show them the courtesy they deserve." With those final words, Sarah and Michael exited the dealership, stepping back into their Rolls-Royce as if floating on clouds. As the car disappeared down the road, the staff stood in stunned silence, the weight of Sarah's message settling heavily upon them. For Greg, the encounter served as a harsh wake-up call, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and arrogance has consequences. For the dealership as a whole, it sparked meaningful change, prompting a renewed commitment to treating every customer with the respect they deserved. Back inside the Rolls-Royce, Sarah leaned back against the plush leather seat, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She glanced at Michael, who reached over to take her hand. "Well done," he said softly, pride shining in his eyes. "It feels good to stand up for myself," Sarah admitted, her voice filled with quiet triumph. "But more importantly, I hope they learned something today." "They did," Michael assured her. "Because of you, they'll never forget the value of treating people with respect, no matter who they are or what they look like." And as the Rolls-Royce continued its journey, carrying Sarah and Michael away from the scene of their victory, the ripple effects of their actions began to spread. What started as a personal act of redemption had transformed into a powerful lesson for an entire community, a testament to the enduring impact of integrity, resilience, and standing up for what is right. The aftermath of Sarah and Michael's visit to the dealership rippled through the small town like a stone dropped into still water. What had begun as a personal act of reclaiming dignity evolved into something far greater, a catalyst for reflection, growth, and meaningful change. The events of that day would leave an indelible mark not only on the individuals directly involved, but also on the broader community, reshaping perspectives and challenging long-held assumptions. Inside the dealership, the atmosphere was tense yet electric in the hours following Sarah and Michael's departure. Greg, the salesperson who had so callously dismissed Sarah the previous day, sat slumped at his desk, staring blankly at the floor. His mind replayed every detail of their encounter, the icy calmness in Sarah's voice, the steely resolve in her gaze, and the pointed reminder that respect should never be contingent upon appearances. For someone whose livelihood depended on reading people and catering to their needs, he realized with crushing clarity how profoundly he had misjudged her. The other staff members were equally shaken. Some felt embarrassed by their colleagues' behavior, while others admitted to harboring similar biases themselves. Conversations buzzed quietly among the team, whispers of regret, disbelief, and even admiration for Sarah's composure and poise. It wasn't just about losing a potential sale, it was about confronting the uncomfortable truth that they had failed to uphold basic human decency. The dealership owner, Mr. Caldwell, took immediate action. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, he called an emergency meeting with his entire staff. Standing before them in the showroom, where the confrontation had unfolded, he addressed the room with uncharacteristic solemnity. "What happened today is unacceptable," he began, his voice firm but tinged with remorse. "We pride ourselves on providing exceptional service, but we fell short, not just yesterday, but perhaps every day before this moment." He outlined a plan to overhaul their approach to customer interactions, emphasizing inclusivity, empathy, and professionalism. Mandatory training sessions would be held weekly, focusing on recognizing implicit biases and fostering genuine connections with clients regardless of their appearance or perceived financial status. Additionally, a new policy was implemented requiring all staff to greet every customer warmly and offer assistance without judgment. A simple yet transformative shift designed to restore trust and integrity. For Greg, the lesson hit hardest. He volunteered to lead one of the training modules, sharing his own experience as a cautionary tale. Though humbling, it became a turning point for him personally. Over time, he learned to see beyond surface-level impressions and treat each person who walked through the door with the respect they deserved. The incident served as a stark reminder that arrogance and prejudice could cost far more than any missed sale. It could tarnish reputations and alienate entire communities. Word of Sarah and Michael's visit spread quickly throughout the town. Neighbors whispered about the Rolls-Royce pulling up to the dealership, the elegant woman stepping out, and the powerful message she delivered. Social media amplified the story, with locals posting photos and videos captured during the event. Comments poured in, ranging from outrage over Greg's behavior to admiration for Sarah's grace under pressure. The narrative resonated deeply with many residents, sparking conversations about privilege, bias, and the importance of treating everyone equally. One local cafe owner recounted how she had once been turned away from a business meeting because of her casual attire, despite owning a thriving enterprise. A young mechanic shared his frustration at being overlooked for promotions due to his tattoos and workwear. These stories underscored a universal truth. Everyone carries unseen burdens and untold strengths, and judging someone based on superficial traits can have lasting consequences. Inspired by Sarah's courage, several community leaders organized workshops and panel discussions aimed at addressing systemic issues of discrimination and inequality. Local schools incorporated lessons on empathy and diversity into their curricula, teaching children from a young age to value kindness and understanding. Even businesses outside the automotive industry began re-evaluating their practices, ensuring that no customer ever felt unwelcome or undervalued again. Sarah herself became an unwitting symbol of resilience and empowerment. Friends and acquaintances approached her in grocery stores and parks, thanking her for standing up not just for herself, but for anyone who had ever been dismissed or belittled. At first, Sarah found the attention overwhelming, but she soon embraced her role as a voice for positive change. She spoke at community events, urging others to challenge stereotypes and advocate for fairness in their daily lives. While Sarah took center stage in the public eye, Michael remained steadfastly supportive behind the scenes. Watching his wife transform from a woman burdened by humiliation to a beacon of strength filled him with immense pride. He had always admired her compassion and humility, but seeing her channel those qualities into advocacy inspired him to reflect on his own life choices. Though he had built his fortune quietly, preferring to keep his success hidden to preserve their modest lifestyle, Michael now recognized the potential impact of using his resources for good. Together, he and Sarah established a foundation dedicated to supporting underprivileged families in their community. They funded scholarships, provided grants for small businesses, and created programs aimed at bridging socioeconomic divides. Their wealth, once a closely guarded secret, became a tool for uplifting others and fostering equality. Michael often joked that Sarah's boldness had rubbed off on him. "You've taught me that true success isn't measured by bank accounts or fancy cars," he told her one evening as they sat together on their porch. "It's about making a difference, however big or small, and leaving the world better than we found it." For Sarah, the journey had been both exhilarating and humbling. Returning to the dealership in a Rolls-Royce hadn't been about revenge or proving a point. It had been about reclaiming her self-worth and demonstrating that dignity cannot be bought or sold. It must be earned and respected. Yet, as the dust settled and the initial excitement faded, she found herself reflecting on deeper truths. She realized that the incident wasn't just about her, it was about challenging societal norms that perpetuate inequality and exclusion. It was about reminding people that everyone deserves to be treated with kindness, regardless of their circumstances. And most importantly, it was about empowering others to stand up for themselves when faced with injustice. One evening, as she flipped through old photo albums with Michael, Sarah paused at a picture of herself from years ago, young, wide-eyed, and full of dreams. She smiled softly, tracing the edges of the photograph with her finger. "Do you know what I've learned?" she asked, her voice thoughtful. "That no matter where life takes us, staying true to who we are is the greatest gift we can give ourselves and the world." Michael nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "And you've done that beautifully," he said. not just for yourself, but for everyone who looks up to you now. Months later, the dealership underwent a remarkable transformation. Sales soared not because of flashy advertising campaigns, but because of the genuine care and respect customers received during their visits. Employees reported feeling more fulfilled in their roles, knowing they were contributing to something greater than profit margins. Even Greg, once the epitome of arrogance, became known for his warmth and attentiveness, earning praise from clients and colleagues alike. Beyond the dealership, the ripple effects continued to spread. The town grew closer, united by shared values of inclusivity and compassion. Conversations about privilege and bias became commonplace, fostering a culture of openness and accountability. Children played freely without fear of judgment, and adults worked together to build a future rooted in fairness and opportunity. Sarah and Michael watched these changes unfold with quiet satisfaction. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There would still be challenges to face and injustices to combat. But they also knew they had planted seeds of hope that would continue to grow for generations to come. As they stood side by side one crisp autumn morning, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Sarah turned to Michael with a smile. "You know," she said, "I never needed all this wealth to be happy. But I'm glad we used it to stand up for what's right." Michael kissed her hand tenderly, his eyes shining with love and admiration. "And that's why I'll always be proud to call you my partner in everything." Together, they stepped forward into the new day, ready to face whatever lay ahead with courage, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time.